We're gonna call the meeting to order. It's Tracy, what is it, 6:01?
6:01.
6:01. And we'll do a quick round it up for
Ginny here. Jennifer Dial here, present.
Mark Sinon present, Paul Grady present.
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann present.
And is there somebody else on?
Chris Flex.
Chris? Well, Chris is not a member though, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
No,
So
I'm in the wrong meeting.
that's fine. Tom Reardon, present. All right, we're ready to go. Before we begin the discussion, I just want to raise some issues that came up this weekend. I got two conversations that I think the board ought to be aware of before as we continue our discussions along this. The first was from Stuart Saginaw, who is the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition. That's a group of 195 communities that have signed on to CPA and tries to provide, among other things, they do some lobbying to try to keep the reimbursements high on the state. They do kind of best practices stuff. And they're kind of a conduit of trying to keep people on these committees informed about the best ways to proceed. And the second conversation, and I had called Stuart because the question of lighting came up in our last meeting. We had been told earlier that when the lighting issue on the baseball fields, the Little League fields came up, we were told that lighting was not in the basket of CPA eligible funding. And so I wanted to push that a little bit and see if that's actually right. And so on the question of funding lighting, he said, it really depends on the proposal. So it depends on how the lighting's used. For example, if it were in a high school where there's restricted access for a varsity football field or something, you can't do that. But if it's in an area where there's no restriction and it's open to the public, then that's fine. So he said, send me the proposal and I'll give you a call back. And so I did. And then when I called back, he expressed some concerns about the completeness of the proposal. He felt that there ought to be a comprehensive integrated budget so that you could look and see where line items expenditures were being made so that they qualified under CPA rules. So that he argues that we are responsible for making sure that's the case. We have line items now, thanks to Michelle, on some of the projects, but not all the projects. But they're not, he'd argue that they ought to be in some sort of coherent form and that is fairly consistent. So that was one of his concerns. The second was that he felt that any vote should always have a designation. Now, this was news to me, but designation of where the money's coming from. So it's coming, we're allotting $10,000, 3,000 from restricted accounts and name the account, from unrestricted account or whatever, and then bonding, if that might be the case. So he says that a proposal to, or a vote, a motion to vote that doesn't include that is incomplete under the best practices. So that was and then the other thing that everything should have is a project description, but I think these things are all manageable, but I just raised them for the committee's considerations. The second was a call from Steve Garmer, who is, I think you all know, the chair of the Housing Community Trust, or the Affordable Housing Trust, an organization that we put some money into. And Steve has two basic concerns. One is he thinks that our vote for the One Pleasant Street will not add to the affordable housing stock. And that, in fact, it is simply funding what is already, he said these are all deeded requirements. So whoever builds that's going to have to build low-income housing. And so we're not putting new stuff, we're simply paying for existing stuff to bring it into life. So that's his concern. The other is he has real questions about the project, how it's going to be managed, how it's going to be maintained. And he knew that there was planned to bring a property manager in. But he would like an opportunity to come before this committee and just talk about the concerns of the trust, because he feels that the trust hasn't, I think he thinks they have better ways to spend that money. So I wanted you all to be aware of these conversations and we can talk about them as we go forward. So, does anybody want to comment? I mean, yes. Paul,
I'll start the comments off just first while we're talking about, going forward with the meeting. Is the select board met. And we've decided to postpone the Deer Hill Field and Lights.
Oh.
All right, until further vet, and we vet out the project more thoroughly, and, we listened to some concerns. Parking management, field size, what are we adding? And so what we're looking at, I'm hoping tonight, is that we're going with CPC funding, for the lacrosse ball, Beechwood, and the courts. So we have pulled roughly, an ask, they were taking just about $2 million off what we're looking for. And Chris is gonna explain that fully, but I just wanna, the board did listen to other concerns. About the field and the neighbors and everybody else and the school committee, so it was. Thought it prudent maybe to. Work together with everybody and come up with something a little more comprehensive. Something we can maybe bring to the table next year and something that makes sense for everybody.
what is the total of those three things?
That we pulled off, it's just
No,
about
the ones that remain, the
2 million?
wall, courts and.
that we're still looking for.
Yeah.
Just about 2 million
Through the engineering costs.
with the costs,
Are you putting in the engineering
I
costs?
believe we are. And,
Please,
and
please.
Chris
It
is
was,
gonna-
it was 4 million altogether.
Yeah, so
for
we
the
pulled,
engineering
yeah.
costs.
You
So,
wanna, let me walk you through that. So I was saying with Michelle earlier, so there was one plan for the fields, it was about 1.5 for the tennis courts, 350 for the playground. About 100 for the lacrosse wall, but only 25 asked for you folks for the actual wall. And then engineering, a lot of the engineering was gonna go to the lights and all that too, so we rechecked the price, so. The tennis courts with the engineering is about 1.6. The a little bit more than that, 1.6.5. The playground's 350 and then the wall's 25, so we're just right around $2 million. So again, this is unbid, this is estimated, so
just on the,
that would fully fund the. So the ask is just down to those three things, and the wall itself is only 25 because the turf that has to be, you can't fund that anyway.
Mhm.
And that's a reasonable ask for the community, for the groups to raise. They need to raise 50 to 75 for the turf elected, so that's fair.
is there any engineering costs associated
Nothing.
with beach playground?
The design is kind of covered really, because we've already kind of prepped it, it's not that complicated.
Okay.
There is some drainage, but that's already been looked at.
Great.
Good.
Any
I thought
questions?
that
on
might
that?
lighten up the conversation.
We would have had to make a choice probably anyway, so.
Tom, this is Mary Ann. To go back to
Yeah.
your original question, and if we had any questions, so you brought it before the CPA, the organization, and he said he had questions or concerns about the presentation, the application that was presented, but you
Yes.
think we have all the details now?
Well, I think we're getting a lot of them, so I think we're in a lot better shape than we were when we sent the material, because we didn't get the new material until today, and I sent him the stuff over the weekend. So
Right.
I think his concerns we can address. I think we need to do that though.
Yes, I think we have to go slowly through this deck. And it would be great in the future, and I think that's what we're working on as a committee, is to make sure our processes and our applications are full and received in detail.
I think, Marianne, in view of that and the discussion we will have later this evening or another time, depending on where we're at. I think after we come up with recommendations, it wouldn't be bad to run those by Stuart. And just see how that's stacked against kind of best in class practice. And we don't have to listen to anything he says. He doesn't have authority, but he has 18 years of experience, both in formulating the law and now in overseeing and working with towns. So I think we'd be wise to at least get his reaction.
I agree. Thanks for contacting him.
Okay. Any other questions for Chris or Paul?
Could Somebody at the Housing Authority Board brought up this question, that there are special specifications for municipal use buildings. And since this building was built not with that in mind, there are state requirements apparently for municipal buildings.
Well, there are some things like.
Steel
Well,
beams or.
Well, not so much that, but we had to put vaults in, right? So
Okay.
we're funding that
All
separately.
right,
You need vaults. You have to put a vestibule in because the kind of building it is now, so we're doing that separately as well
Okay.
through the 30B. So yeah, there are a couple of things, but otherwise, office space. A police station's different, right?
Yeah.
There are different requirements for that. And there are also different requirements for housing,
Mhm.
but not for the town
Okay,
hall per se,
good.
so,
Thank
except
you.
for what I just mentioned. Do you want to tell us you tell me, I don't have your agenda in front of me,
No.
how I can be useful to you.
What,
These are the spreadsheets I did, giving you updates on what your balances are.
yes,
Yeah.
yep, sure.
And then one more for John. You want one for second?
I have one, I have one. So.
Paul,
Okay,
you have one?
I haven't radio.
Oh, you did? Okay, okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And this is what we have. Davis.
I emailed him, Chris thought it would be better for him.
And Tom, may I ask a question about the lacrosse ball?
Yes,
When we're-
Sports wall.
The sports wall, yes, the sports wall.
Yeah.
I saw one for the first time, I think, over in Situate this weekend. Now I know, so that's gonna be, is it correct in my understanding, that's in by the library,
That's
in
my
the
understanding.
back on the grass?
It'll be in that
Where is
area,
it?
yeah,
Oh.
in the area. You have the playground, you have the basketball courts, and then the wall would go in that vicinity.
The open area.
Yeah,
In
it
that-
wouldn't wipe out all of that, it would go in an area where we still have field.
Okay, yeah, cause I was wondering, so have you guys then, I'm assuming, or what has, like Ted said, and where do they stand? I know there's also like, I know, and I feel like I remember from Super Soccer Stars, there was some drainage things, so I'm just wondering how this might affect that, and what Ted said.
So this went to the rec,
Okay,
and the rec board voted to have it there.
okay,
So, Tim Bernica and the team all voted, I mean, I love Ted, I work with Ted all the time, Ted doesn't want anything anywhere that he hasn't decided himself, so. That's, I was just walking the dog there earlier today, so
Okay.
it would be in a place where you still have field, right? But
Yeah.
it would also be there, and that's I think one of the concerns initially was having it in a public area, but it's a pretty open public area, right? I mean,
Yeah.
No one's gonna hang out there and go drinking or whatever with their lacrosse balls without anyone noticing.
right, cause it's just,
Is it?
It's a wall.
it's a wall.
It's a wall.
It's like it's a cement wall,
It's a
right?
cement wall,
Yeah.
I mean, you could, and you use it as, it's like if you had a pitch back at home or whatever, same kind of concept, that's all it is, except it's over covered. You can also bounce soccer balls off it, or tennis balls, or pickleballs if you wanted to.
And how big is the turf that goes around it, just out of curiosity?
It's there, it's around, because, the kids are around it a lot, it would wear down, so that the reason the turf is put down, so it doesn't hurt the mud.
Right.
It's not that
So you
big.
can do it off the grass though, too.
Oh, yeah. So it
Is
doesn't
it
have to be on, it doesn't have to be on grass, I mean, I don't think they wanna give any parking there, but,
No.
yeah.
Is it level with the illustration looked like it was slightly raised, and I thought that can't be because people would be falling out.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe a little bit higher, like the basketball, it's a little bit above the grass around it, right?
But would kids fall off? if they
No,
went
no,
backwards?
I don't think it'll be anything that dramatic.
No, it's precious of raised, maybe like.
Just a little
said,
bit.
Just like the basketball course, I mean, if you fall, you're just gonna fall in the grass, maybe.
You're not really running, I mean, basketball, you're running around.
Yeah.
In this, you're not competing, you're just,
playing catch.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
All right, sir, the numbers.
So, and I apologize for the small typeface, but it doesn't fit big, so, what I did is I updated you as of the votes you've taken, so, and again, I put them in buckets, but you probably should vote them in buckets. You voted, according to the records of Tracy, you have his 8,000 for the Paul Pratt Historical Cabinets, right?
Mhm.
87, 878, I'm losing my eyesight too.
858.
Is it 858?
I had 870.
I got 878,
Yeah.
878.
You get an extra $20. That's for the housing authority, and then the one Pleasant was 1.3 million. So what I did is so 8,000 come out of the historical preservation bucket, so you're at 114,530. The 87,878 comes out of the community housing bucket, so you have 187,222. Nothing came out of open space. The undesignated, is where you had 1.3 million, so I just figured that's the easiest way to take the 1.3 million out of, because it's simple, which would leave you 65,969. You still have 391,883 that was unappropriated, that was from last year, the extra. You had to put 10% in buckets, but that was the money that didn't go in anything, and you didn't vote any projects back in May, so that's still the money that's available for anything. So, that's what, based on those votes, that's the money that's still available to you today for the rest of this year. I actually think it'll be higher at the end of the year, because I actually think you're gonna be getting more than 680,000. I think it'll be higher when we get all the tax money in and we get all the state money, because we get money from the registry and all. Last year was over 800,000. The year before it was a little less than that. So I think it'll probably be close to 8, but better be conservative and have extra money for next year, right? So, and then the next year is just the update. It just shows what the very conservative projections are for revenue for the CPC for the next 10 years. That 589 is actually what we got in 23. So actually, I think it'll be even higher, but again, I'm using the lower base. It goes up 2.5% a year automatically, because that's what our tax rate typically goes up by. And new growth gets factored into that too. I didn't factor any new growth in, so if there's new growth, the base just keeps going up. So typically, the last few years, CPC revenue has risen by 2.75%, 3.5%. So it's probably gonna go up more than that, but again, this is being really conservative. And the lowest state match in the last 20 years was 17%. This is only 10%. So again, being uber conservative. Again, I think it'll be higher than that. The smallest state match was $87,000. That was the 17% match. The last couple of years have been over $200,000. So I'm expecting it'll be higher, but again, giving you projections that are super conservative. So that's $7.2 million conservatively over the next 10 years. That's from next fiscal year, the money you can spend in May for next year, all the way through the next 10 years. And then I got a little, so that's just where you are. Any questions about those numbers? I'm gonna try to make sure you get this regularly now. Okay, so you're always on top of what the balances are. I can make this look prettier, by the way. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. So, and then when I updated the borrowing projections for $1 million, $1.5 million, and $2 million. They're very small, but they're on the last sheet. And then I gave you options. Again, this is not the only way you can do this, but this is two ways. If you chose to fund the $2 million request for the the courts, the playground and the sports wall. You borrow all $2 million. I use the declining the steady principal, and then I subtracted that from the revenue for the next 10 years and showed you what would happen. So you'd have it starts at 300,000, it drops to 210, and then you'd have 348 of available revenue in the first year, and it keeps going back up. But you'd end up with $2 million over the first 5 years and 4.7 over 10, even fully funding that $2 million. If you instead chose to because you still have $500,000 that you could throw at the park right now if you wanted to, and you only borrowed 1.5, obviously that would mean you borrow less, you pay less interest, and in 10 years, over the next 5 years, you have almost $2.4 million, and over 10 years, $5.4 million that will be available. That's if you fully fund the $2 million, which that's the ask. So there'll still be a lot of money available. And again, I think it's going to be higher than this by some number. Over the 5 years, perhaps 500,000 plus more, depending on what the state numbers look like. And we know that the class of our is coming online. We know that the 390 CJC units are just coming online. So those new growth are not going to hit us till next year. So I expect to see some little bit more bumps. So CPC revenue is not going anywhere, but up.
Could I ask, there was some question of an ADA match?
Oh,
Beechwood,
yeah.
and I mean,
So the ask for the $2 million is this: it's $2 million less any other grants or funds received. So that would be, we think we have 15,000 coming in for the playground, but I want to lock that down, right? And then we may have as much as 150,000
Yeah.
also coming for the playground. So that would come right on. So if we
Okay.
get those grants, we won't know that till December. Then even if you approve $2 million, we'd only actually take 185. So every dollar we get from something else, we're reducing. And if the prices come in lower too, right? I mean, I wish that was gonna happen. I can't
Yeah.
promise that it didn't.
yeah,
But,
one of the things we want to start emphasizing, among others, is it strengthens the project and it helps if every project tries to acquire some additional funding from outside sources. That's almost a given with the grant process.
So we've actually, again, so I think we're fairly confident about that ADA grant.
Oh,
but
that'd be great.
You never got, I just found out we won $400,000 in other grants today, so I'm very excited about it. Nothing to do with any of this, but, so we've had a pretty good track record, and they get the 15,000, which was from the rec fund and some of the community contributions, I think is pretty much a given, but I don't wanna, so that's, you know, it's up to 165,000. There may be a little bit more if we get some more, find some more money in some other places.
Wow.
So.
What would be the timetable on going to the bond markets?
Probably not till next June at the earliest. We can loan ourselves money and then we usually go in the spring. Because, and then you kind of watch the markets. You're not going to want the long-term debt right away either, which we tend not to. You kind of watch the markets. We do a short-term loan and then we try to layer these on so everything doesn't hit all at once. Because I don't expect actually, even with this project, it wouldn't be bid, it wouldn't be constructed, probably, some of it would be constructed right early in the spring, but some of it, tennis courts probably wouldn't be done until next summer. And just because of, the weather and the playing fields being so active. So we probably wouldn't have those expenses until FY25 and even FY26. So it would actually delay the hit on the CPA fund, so. But we'd let you know all of that as we go, so it'll probably be more money actually for next year.
How does this relate to other bonding that the town?
We usually do them together. It's usually done together. We get a better rate. The more money you do, the better rate you have. And again, I would only recommend you can go up to 15 years on park projects. Because the tennis courts in particular, they last a really long time. But I would recommend going more than 10 at this point. I mean, if the interest rates were super low, maybe, but they're not quite as slow as they used to be.
One of the questions that came up, Chris, in the last meeting was the maintenance plan. I mean, we're in this mess because things weren't maintained. And so how do we prevent that from happening all over?
So, yes, and some of this is just extended end of life, right? So the playground's really end of life. Some of that stuff's just end of life. And I realized that if anyone's seen any of the new modern playgrounds, they just look entirely different, right? I mean, the style of play for kids is just different. I mean, I was talking in the office, I played on monkey bars in a jungle gym, right? And concrete turtles, which should probably all be verboten for danger and damage. I fell off the monkey bars more than once.
And
So,
rolly things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that, right? And the metal slide that burns.
Yeah.
That's right.
That is,
Yeah. So we all experience those. So those are no good anymore. Plus, there's other things added. There's musical elements and even like math kind of things that are added in. And also, where there's more attentiveness to special needs, kids with special needs. So playgrounds just look different. They should be replaced probably every 20 years or so. And that playgrounds do. In terms of the tennis courts, we've been talking about this now for at least 5 years since I've been here. And the fields and court study we did, the big study actually started with a conversation with the tennis people about tennis courts. And we kept stretching them along. The pandemic came, everything stopped, and then we picked up the conversation after the pandemic. So,
But they've been a mess for a long time. That's what.
So here's the plan, right? So for a long time, so in terms of playgrounds, our facilities folks are now the playground inspector. They're gonna be certified as playground inspectors, or in the alternative, get regular training. And their goal is to keep them in good shape all the time. So they gotta be regularly attending to the playgrounds. In terms of tennis, the same thing. We're looking to upgrade the facilities team. And again, it would have been when more fields come into the mix. We're gonna want to have someone who just does fields at least during the year, who really specializes in lining and striping and maintaining. My prior committee was much bigger. We had a whole team that just did lining and striping and maintenance. They were field. We're not big enough to do that. That said, we're trying to develop a little more skill set for that, because the baseball field's the same problem, right? We were trying to get ahead of that now, and our facilities team wants to take on some more of that. So there are now dedicated people who will be taking that.
I mean, adding people?
No, not right now. No, we're just gonna add to skill sets. If we continue to grow, if we do add a field, if we come back in the future for a new field, we might ask for another head count to share with the schools. Because I think the schools probably have the same. Neither of us have a full-time need, but I think when you add them both together, it's probably a full-time need. we just have to figure out how to make it work and structure it. It's just, even the field turf field has to be maintained. You gotta rake the rubber, and you gotta make sure it's cleaned and. Yeah, it's an expensive investment. You wanna make sure you stay on top of that too, so. Does that kind of answer your question?
Anybody, any other questions? Yes, sir. Well, I suppose we should finish the board discussion. That, Anybody here have any-
I can't believe Tracy elections a board member, but she's not.
So are you still planning to do the lighting at the tennis courts or?
No, there's no lighting.
There's no lighting, so it's just
It's the
the,
6 courts.
Yep.
I remember the way it's located, the retaining wall has to be rebuilt.
Yep.
So the retaining wall will be rebuilt, the courts will be in, they're gonna be compliant for concrete, so they should last a really long time. And no lights. I mean, the lights could be put in the future if there's interest,
but not.
not now, no lights.
yes, sir.
I'm Mike Dick. I live at 27 Parker Ave. I'm co-chair, sorry, not co-chair. I'm the vice chair of the Capital Budget Committee. And in looking at the Beechwood Playground and in doing our due diligence on the requests that come before you and also before us. I want you to know that last year, Capital Budget was presented with this proposal. And we felt that the equipment could be repaired, and we all allocated and town meeting voted for $30,000. I've been out there several times. I have now a grandson. First time I was out there was this spring. He was just starting to walk. And that Beechwood Playground is geared to that age group, the true toddlers, maybe 5 or 4 and below. And looking at that particular playground for that particular age, it's really well suited. And the equipment is also well suited to that age group. So the question becomes, is this equipment really end of life? And yes, I know there have been some consultants consulted, but in going out there and seeing the equipment following the repairs, they're actually in quite good shape. And this morning, knowing that I would want to attend this meeting, I went out there to try and see first, are there people using it? And indeed there are. There were probably 10 or 12 folks out there, grandparents and mothers, along with all of their toddlers. And I asked them how they like the equipment. Do they feel that there's anything lacking or dangerous or a problem with that? And with this unscientific survey, this answer I got was, these are great. And I'm trying not to exaggerate. I'm trying to give you what I got. So when this comes before capital budget, I'm going to raise that same concern that perhaps we could save $175,000 on equipment and allow this equipment to extend further into the future. There is the question of the ADA compliance and the rubber surface, and I'm fully in support of that. My grandson lives in New York City, and all of their playgrounds have this rubberized surface, and it's terrific, and it should be done. I'll just leave you with a couple other comments that I received from parents. One parent said, if you're going to add money to this playground, then create a splash pad. These are like little sprinklers that are child size and geared to kids who play with the water. And then the other thought was, and this, I don't know where the cost would be or how it would be paid for, but a canopy. So folks told me that in the summertime, it's too hot there, that the sun beats down and that they tend not to go there. So it's more of a spring fall pattern for them. So I wanted to share those observations with you.
And this is all information you gleaned from today. I'm just curious.
The comments are from today. But the information, or let me put it, my observations were taken 3 times spring through summer. Whenever my grandson came and visited, we would go to this playground.
That you find it satisfactory, I think that's great, but I would say this, we've had more pushback for this and ask for this playground. It's gone quite a long time, Mr. Dick. I mean, a real long time. The Beechwood section has been asking. Chris, I think that equipment is at end of life, isn't it?
Well, go out and take a look yourself.
I've been there, I've walked through many
Right,
times, matter of fact, I
Cross
tried the
streets,
swing.
I
All
know
the-
people who won't take the
Right.
joke.
The problems have been corrected in the repairs that we paid $30,000 for. I did see those rusted steps back when this first came up to us. And voted for the $30,000 repairs. And I can see that those problems have been corrected. That the cloudy plexiglass has been replaced with clear. And that the surfaces are all smooth and painted and proper. So I appreciate the fact that Beechwood has been coming to you and you're a select board member. And you're gonna feel that pressure. I'm just coming to you as someone with something of a mission to do due diligence on all the asks we get and try and validate the correctness of the request.
As
In
are
this
we,
case-
Mr. Dick,
What's that?
as are we.
Absolutely. So
Right,
I
so-
wanted to share that information, one person's view, and try to do a little bit of talking to people to get a sense of, is this a problem? And the sense I got was no, it's a good place. So thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, if I may, so I didn't raise this when we were talking before, but the ADA issue is real, and we need to have that element added, which we hope we get the grant for, right? And since that's gonna have to, and there's also some drainage issues there, so this, part of the problem is not just the equipment, it's just, when it was installed, you could, there's a seat, there's some drainage issues that we addressed up there as well.
But what about
And-
the equipment that Mike?
Well, I mean, again, you could still put out monkey bars at a jungle gym today and it would be fine. I think the one that I played on many years ago would probably still be there if it wasn't ripped out because it wasn't compliant with safety standards of the modern day. There are no ADA elements to that playground, which there will be in the redesign. And again, kids play on anything, I'm not speaking here as a parent of young children, right? So, you make do with what you have, right? I think there's been a legitimate request to take a hard look at that, and I think a modern playground there is definitely a smart investment for the next 20 years.
If we're gonna do all that other work.
Right, and that's
it's
part of
time
it too,
to
right? If
replace the equipment so that it's all.
you're gonna do the surface, if you're gonna do the drainage, you gotta be taking that, it's like, you get a car, you gotta replace the engine, but you gotta have the same old body, it's like, oh, it's painted, but it's still, but again, that's, so there's been a legitimate request made, I think, for this from the community, and I think the proposal is a reasonable one. I've seen playground costs that are much higher than this.
It's not a huge request.
Yes,
I
yeah.
had a question, in hearing Mr. Dick's comment, I do remember when I used to take my boys there, we don't go there as much now. My youngest son is in second grade and he is a little bit old for that one. He prefers the library or the ones at the school. How will, and I know much longer, info on the specific equipment. I didn't have time to read it all before the meeting, but how will this change the, what's the age now for this playground? Will it expand to now like a larger group of kids where, because it is the only playground in town in the summer when camps are happening, so does the new equipment, is it still geared primarily towards the younger kids, or with this larger amount of equipment, will it target maybe like an 8-year-old? Yeah,
I don't
so
think
this
that
would-
space is big enough to target
Yeah.
two different age groups. I don't think you wanna put in older kids running around in a small space with your 3 and 4 and 5-year.
I think that's one of the challenges with that space. I'm sure you've seen, like, they have the.
Oh, yeah.
The younger kids, so, no, but they often have so
fencing.
mom could be there with the younger kid on this side, the older kid on that side. Or dad be there, we should, we just, that's, as Virginia said, it's not a very big space.
Sure, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's
so
kinda- I think
is
it's- I
it
think
Still
it's-
gonna stay targeted toward that.
That's-
I believe it's
what is it,
geared
2
towards
to
the younger.
5 or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
however they break it
It's
up.
like some of the kids are playing ball.
Yeah,
and-
exactly,
And
I'm on
then
the
the
field,
younger
and the
kids are
little
playing
ones
it, so
there.
I believe it's
Yeah.
gonna be geared more towards the younger sets.
Yeah,
If
so it'll
the-
keep the same vibe that it
Yes,
has
Yeah,
now.
that's the
exactly,
hope.
Yeah.
And if there's an opportunity to build something bigger in another location, then we'll certainly look at it, something, the next age group, but not, at this point, it's gonna stay.
Okay, that's what I
What
was
is
just making
the
sure, yeah.
equipment cost as
It's
a
about, it's a little
component.
less than two, right? Is that what?
Well, here it says equipment amount, 118,366. Do you wanna,
Section.
this is the sheet with the, that I printed up the breakdown if you wanna see it.
Yeah. I mean,
I think Michelle circulated all that.
that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
was
it was
just
in one
trying
of
to
the
find in my
emails.
phone, but.
A lot of the work that has been done there, like I said, is drainage and that.
I didn't have that.
So
I don't know that, no.
I didn't get that
But,
one.
or, I don't,
That's
I could easily, look at it.
I got a list of the equipment, but not.
That's.
This is Mary Ann Weatherall. I just want to appreciate the public comment. That was helpful and always welcomed. I wanted to talk about the line items for the Beechwood Playground. Would, poured in place rubber, would that be considered artificial turf?
No, it's literally solid, it's a rubber, it's a slightly bouncy rubber surface, Mary Ann. I actually saw it while I was at a zoo, and it was actually in an area for people, actually, so. It's a lot in playgrounds in the city, which are some of them that are newer tend to have it more. There's not as many in the suburbs, because we tend to have bigger playgrounds and they're much more expensive to do.
The Situate Playground by the
Does that
train
have-
station has
Yeah.
that.
That's what.
I think Deer Hill has.
Is there, yeah, you're right, Deer Hill has it. It's a poured in place, and it becomes kind of like a softer surface. It's not turf at all, it's
Yeah.
solid.
Okay, thank you. And then the contingency, what is that? For 20 grand, what, can you explain more of what that is?
Yeah, that's in case costs are higher than expected.
Okay,
Yeah, and if they're not, we won't spend the money. So, that's just a cushion. It's a small cushion in there in case costs accelerate.
Has this been developed with Massachusetts ADA standards as well as the state? Because I think they ran into a problem with. the
Yeah,
building code,
this will meet state standards,
Yeah.
yes,
Which are stricter, of course.
yes.
I don't wanna cut off discussion, but on the other hand, I wanna get Chris and Paul's view of Gomer's comments that I mentioned at the outset. And then we can come back and have more discussion about this, but I know you guys have to lead. so-
You have me as long as you want. Paul does have to.
On town hall,
Yes, on One Pleasant Street. Basically saying that two things, we were not adding, since these were requirements that any developer is gonna have to meet if they're gonna build housing. And the second thing being that this was not a well thought out plan. There isn't a kind of comprehensive management structure, that he has a number of questions. And Chris, you said that you talked to him, so.
Yeah, you wanna take it?
yeah, just for a minute, I'm at a loss to understand why you'd say that, I will say that.
He would love an
So
opportunity to
4
come before
units
this.
that we, first, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I apologize, plus. The 13 all apply towards affordable housing. Am I correct in that? Every one of the units in that building is going towards our affordable housing.
His argument,
Inventory, I'm sorry, I use the word stock, inventory is the more correct in the terms.
his argument is though, that that's a requirement. And that any developer, whether it's the town or somebody else, gonna have to.
A percentage of the units would have to be deemed affordable. These are all being deemed affordable.
I count them all because we have so many, so they get to come over.
So so Steve is right on its face that by having 4 dedicated units, all the rentals would have counted to the affordable housing stuff. But the other 9 rentals could have been, and probably would have been, market rate rentals.
Mhm.
The select board's goal here is to make them, again, to be developed, the process for this, to a workforce has to maintain them in a small, affordable way. And again, I think that conversation has to be, still to be developed. And that would not have happened, that would not have happened before. The four units that anchor the project, kind of what's happened at 390 CJC, right? There are 4 units there that are dedicated affordable, maybe there's 5. The others are market rate. So they all count to the affordable housing stock, because rentals count as long as you have that 1/4 of them dedicated. In this case, the other 9 units that'll be part of this, the goal is to maintain them as well, to make them affordable in a workforce or a town, veterans, seniors, whatever the development, whatever the need ends up being. And because they're under town control, they'll be able to be that forever, because the town doesn't have to make a profit on the units, they have to maintain them.
Have you said you talked to him today?
I did, and
You pacified him? Is he
well, no,
satisfied?
I wouldn't say that Steve is easy to pacify. I would say that I communicated with him. I would also say that it's challenging in a world of volunteers with everyone working to be able to communicate. And I've been to their meetings a couple times. Unfortunately, none of their members have been able to come to a select board meeting. And also, unfortunately, they haven't been able, a select board member hasn't been able to take that seat on the trust, because again, everyone is working crazy hours and everyone's a volunteer on the side. So I think that there's been a little bit of disconnect on his part on some of this, and I'm trying to help bridge that gap. But we've had a lot of conversations with Paul Kears, who's the chairman of the steering committee. He's been very helpful to Michelle and I about finding a management company and helping structure that. I've seen Rob Jeffers on it. He was a member. I was at one of their meetings not so long ago with Ted Carr was chairing it. Steve wasn't at that meeting. So I think this is more. Steve may have his own views, which I'm not going to attempt to speak for or against. I think though that this conversation about these units has been, select board spent a lot of time thinking about this, figuring out how to make this work. And again, I think the key element is that those 9 units have the ability now to be this workforce housing, which they would not have been before. Does that make sense?
Well, my concern is that we put a lot of money into the trust. It has major interest and a major player in developing affordable housing. His voice has not been heard before this group. And I think he feels that we are lacking information that he would be more than happy to supply. And
I also think it's fair to say that the select board is supposed to, is the goal setting body, and the Affordable Housing Trust is appointed by the select board.
yes,
And they are in the middle of several projects which are still ongoing. So they're and you know, it takes time, right? The Habitat project is still, haven't done the ceremonial groundbreaking, they haven't done the actual groundbreaking, there's a lot of work to be done with that. There's a unit they're transforming on Elm Street, which was another Habitat project, but they bought it and they're renovating it, and then that'll be deeded affordable. That didn't happen when it first got built, I don't know why. And they've been working on some other projects too, so I mean, I don't think, I think this complements the work they're doing, I don't think it competes with it.
yeah, I didn't get the sense that he felt it was competition.
Well, I mean, I did get the sense that he felt that this came on our radar screen literally 2 months ago. It was an opportunity. The select board said, let's go for it. I mean, so sometimes opportunities present themselves and you got to run. And there was a lot of conversations. I don't know how many hours of executive session there's been, how many conversations we've had all summer about this stuff. And the consensus of, again, I want to speak for the board, they're all sitting here, has been that this is a real opportunity for the community. And again, while I wish we could have put everybody in the room all the time, that just hasn't been possible. And again, I've been to their meetings a couple of times to talk to them. It's like there hasn't been communication. I think Steve's been reacting a little bit more out of his passion than a full set of information, if I may be kind about that.
Please.
Yes, so I was Jean Harry Default. So I did reach out to Mr. Dahmer, sent an email, at the end of August, not with that. Wanted to get the Affordable Housing Trust involved. And I think a part of that was a tech snafu because Mr. Dahmer didn't, and now I'm learning today, didn't have access to his email. But what I did hear from, and I can't discuss the contents of executive session, but I will say informally, some feedback we got was about maybe concerns from the Affordable Housing Trust, who are volunteers like the rest of us, and having maybe too much of a hand in managing the day-to-day of affordable housing units and whether that was realistic. I mean, as you think about being a landlord. And so what we as the town have been doing is really trying to figure out what's the managing structure, the property management structure, operating statement, complying with applicable affordable housing requirements. And so Michelle and I reached out to applicable community development corporations, including the big ones in Boston, solicited their assistance, including on property managers. We both got directed to the same. NeighborWorks is the big convening group in Massachusetts, if not the nation, on affordable housing. I used to be on the board of one of the big Boston CPC affordable housing developers. And so we reached out to the correct contact within the South Shore to do some more diligence on just really the day-to-day. I think, part of this is we have a variety of different groups who are stakeholders, right? And as we try to navigate very quickly under tight deadlines, maybe we need to do a better job at reaching out to some of them. But in terms of the actual logistics and who's gonna manage it and what's realistic, Michelle, I think, has done a great job in trying to help narrow down to who realistically could be our property manager in managing these units and what those costs would look like. And when we put an RFP out, which we can't really do until we know the town wants to buy One Pleasant Street, then we can, reach out with, to invite people to participate in the bid. I think the question really for the CPC is, in addition to any sort of specific questions you have about the operation of those affordable housing units, the money that you voted for last week, is that well spent? I would personally view this, I'm not gonna speak for the select board, but that's a contribution not just to the affordable housing units, but to defraying the overall cost of our new town hall as well. That's really in part what it represents. It goes beyond the 4 deeded units. It's to help defray and support affordable housing units, not just of the 4, but more generally of the other 9 units. Do you think that's a good policy goal? And do you support affordable housing, including affordable housing that doesn't come with a very, very tight state restrictions that you would have if you had 40B affordable housing, but affordable housing that gives us the flexibility to try to do, local preference and senior housing that has more flex on the income requirements? I think that's what you're voting for. You're voting towards that policy goal. Mr. Balmer's right. You could redeploy this money towards some other future affordable housing project in the future if you so chose. But right now, what we have before us is the town hall and the affordable housing units, and also an opportunity to defray a tax increase, because that's the only way this is going to pay. It's just through an increase in taxes. And so the question too is if you want to use the money towards that in light of all the other projects that are coming before us too, for the taxpayers.
Jim, the 4 units that we are helping to purchase, those would come under 40B.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And we
Mr.
had
Gomer's right. Those
designated,
would be 40B regardless.
and we
of-
designated low income affordable, not medium income affordable,
That would be the strictest definition.
Okay. didn't we? We did.
Yes, I think
Okay.
it did.
Can I just jump in?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Mary Ann Weatherall. Last week, we spent a lot of discussion talking about market rate, moderate units and affordable. So the ones that we have purchased that we put money forward to, the 4 of them were 40B for affordable, which we designated. What are we, when we say that the 9 other units are going to be market rate, are they going to be moderate? What's the difference? Because moderate, we were talking about helping firemen and teachers live in the community and things like that. Can you talk to that about those 9 units and how they're going to be designated?
The remaining 9 units would not be market rate. They would be set aside for a preference for town employees, police, fire, seniors, but not under the strict 40B regulation. So the intent would not be to make those market rate, but to price them accordingly for town employees, police, fire. seniors. Veterans, thank you.
So when we talk about the maintenance of it and market rate, that's not the right words that I'm hearing in this meeting. They're moderate to reach out to DPW and firemen.
But not moderate in the sense that the state defines or defines moderate. Just
Right.
moderate in the way the town would like to define, based on the sort of salaries that people get here, I suppose, that would be eligible. It's not the state defined moderate.
Sounds like flexible is the
Oh.
word.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, you had mentioned that as well.
so it's a
yeah.
Cohasset definition.
Sure, yeah. Based on, I suppose, looking at the salaries of the town employees and who might be interested and what would be reasonable.
And this is a great place, I'm sorry to interrupt, we get some guidance and feedback from our affordable housing trust, particularly if we want to try to replicate this in the future, right, through the Affordable Housing Trust as well, because I think they've been buying, but they haven't been renting, and I do think that there's a need for rentals, not just
That's true.
units.
And also, I'm certain that we definitely, it will be by a strict lottery system. So that, it's not gonna be,
I think it's beneficial to have as many town employees living in the town. In the old days, everybody lived in the town, and it did make a difference. We knew all the
When I've
policemen and the
heard,
firemen,
I
and,
heard,
you know.
by the fire department, people just, they can't, they're out of town, they have people living miles just to get to their
Yeah,
job, and
yeah.
that's, that's.
And you don't know them.
Can be probably, you don't know them, and it's nice to be able to walk down the street and see, but
Community policing, it makes a big difference.
The question is, does the committee want to hear from Steve Ballmer or not?
Darren.
Oh, Darren, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Hi, and I was present, but not a panelist when you started this meeting, so just a question. So there's HUD, capital A affordable, again, we're talking moderate, moderated affordability. Are there, this isn't a novel concept, right? Are there not communities that have sort of allocated this type of housing for town employees, first responders, seniors? Do they have charters that, define, and then, we're talking about Cohasset affordable, but do we have examples? I mean, I'm sure this is a desire and something that must exist elsewhere, right?
Our lawyers.
Chris is shaking his head, yes.
So, Darren, this has been done a lot in places like Cape Cod and the islands.
Yeah.
A lot more elaborately than we're talking about here, because they literally can't get anybody, right? So they and some of it's been done on the private side where, they've just bought houses and rented units to people. This is our first crack at it. So we're not looking for, state charter or anything like that. We're trying to just work it in with
Town chart, right? Just
Yeah,
working
yeah.
examples. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, there are a number on the Cape and the islands. And other places in the state, but there in particular, where there's been such a challenge with getting workers, so.
You could get some advice too from people like our manager who runs and is very familiar with how what state requirements tend to be when you're choosing tenants.
Yeah.
What to look for, how to vet.
So
people.
we've been in contact.
Good.
All right, is there an appetite on the part of the committee to hear from Steve, or are we comfortable with where we're at?
Since we're redoing all of our guidelines, and we know that the next round, we're gonna ask more of people in terms of their applications and so forth, then I think it would be reasonable to just go ahead with this proposal this time, and then with the understanding that from now on, we're gonna really demand a little more very good information.
Yeah, how do you?
Comfortable with that, I think. I feel comfortable with it, and these are rental units, right?
Yes, they're not, it's emphasized, they're not gonna change. I know questions are brought up, Jim,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
are we gonna put them out in the open market? The answer is no. And again, the select board's discussed, I'm not speaking for all of us, but looking at the management companies, and just think it's a benefit for the town. Right now, I would worked on it, it's, and again, Chris put it appropriately, it's something that kind of like manna from heaven, just, it's there, along with, say, the other proposals we're looking at, it just seemed to come together, and so that's why we've had a heck of a lot of executive sessions, and this has been, quite a trick, and you guys have been fantastic.
I'm comfortable with the other recreation proposals as they.
Let me just.
I do agree with Ginny though, as we are, and her work has been amazing, and all the stuff. And so I think moving forward, I would love for him to be at the, come to the table earlier and sort of talk and stuff, but I'm comfortable with the decision that we've made.
Okay.
And I think we'll make changes moving forward.
I'm comfortable with the decision that we made. I think it's the right one.
Marianne? There's
I'm
a
okay with
question.
this.
Okay, and Darren?
I think we're fine. No.
Very good.
I move that we accept The housing proposal,
I second it.
can I do that?
Accept the housing proposal.
Accept the proposal to fund the affordable housing.
So
We've done that already.
Yeah, and if I may, so I think, Tom, you wanted to make sure,
We voted it?
yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
you wanted to designate the location of the money, right, the accounts?
Yes,
So,
Oh,
yeah, so if I might recommend that if you do revote that for the fund,
yeah,
that you take it out of undesignated, because you had $1.3 million in that account.
that's what you had recommended, right, on the.
Yeah, that's, because that's what I have already projected you're
Yeah.
doing, because that's the most logical place to take it.
Well, look, I don't know that we have to do that for this particular.
Okay,
plan.
that's fine.
I think we need to know that, and.
And look,
but we
if
haven't done
if
that.
that's the consensus, if all of you say, yes, that's what we meant to do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna consider that's what you meant to do.
Right.
And the community housing piece for the housing authority coming out of the community housing bucket, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And the historical money coming out of the historical bucket, makes sense.
I think going forward, we should do this, but we've never done it before, so I don't
Okay.
see why we should stop things on that basis, so
But it doesn't have to be allocated at town meeting, it has to give the account,
Yes.
so
that's right.
I will consider that to be. In case you'll note that there's been a consensus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, you have to go?
I'd like to see if we're gonna do vote on the
Okay.
playgrounds and
Yep.
we know we deferred the fields.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion? Then we can have a conversation.
I would make a
Go ahead.
Jeannie, no, Joe, go
No.
ahead, Jeannie. You've
No.
done it a lot longer than me, so go ahead. You-
No, please.
All right, I'd make a motion that we approve funding for the Beechwood Playground that we've deferred, Deer Hill, the next go around, at some point in time, where we're able to narrow it down. And I would recommend that we approve $25,000 for the lacrosse wall with the promise of funding coming from outside sources, including the lacrosse team fundraising. And I make a motion that, we approve the repair and replacement of the tennis courts,
On the lacrosse, on the sports walls,
sports wall, I'm
you
sorry.
said, how much? You wanted us to authorize 125?
No, 25.
Okay.
I thought it was.
I guess.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 100 with the field turf, so it's all, the walls will know.
I'm not touching, no, let's.
Okay.
Let's be
No, that's
clear,
fine.
25,000. I don't wanna get myself in trouble.
Okay,
I'll second.
comment, well, that's great. But before we vote, let's have a conversation. Does anybody want to speak to this motion?
So may I just jump in first? So then, looking at that, then. I would love to sort of discuss the funding then, if we were to do that. How, I think part of the discussion should be sort of the allocation, because we would need to go to bond.
Yeah.
And so.
Chris's proposal is that we bond it all. it looks like.
Well, it's two, I
Yeah.
recommended two, I give you two,
Yeah.
you could bond it all. Or you can bond, I gave you an option of, you can do other things.
Yep.
You have another $500,000 you could put at the project right now if you wanted to. And then,
But that really
Yeah.
makes it hard to do any other kind
Yeah.
of significant, we've got.
oh,
we've got
yeah, if somebody can't, but remember, in the spring, you're gonna be tapping next year's money.
Right, but we're still gonna have people in
Yes.
from Holly Hill and with substantial aspirations.
So if you bond, if you bond it again, I think it'll come in less than this, but this is the estimate with that 5% over 10 years. That's this one on the left side here.
The two. And
And we're probably going to use there's two different, if you go back, if you go to the next page, we're probably gonna use the level principal because it saves money. What it does, it means that the costs start out a little higher and they drop faster. So it would start at, it's the little tiny print on the very last page. So, I'm sorry for the little small print. I'm having trouble reading myself. It starts out at 300, then it drops down to 210 by the end of the 10 years, because what happens is we're paying a level amount of principal every year, not just a step payment. So it pays off faster.
and does this already includes the
Isn't that right?
FY
Yes, and also remember that.
or,
This starts with, this starts with
available
25.
revenue.
This is from
Okay.
24.
Excuse me, what is the title of the document that you're looking at? So I can.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Mary Ann, there were two that went out, one was, balances, the other one was, town recreation proposal funding, I think is what it was called.
It's,
Oh, whatever.
bonding options for the town.
Bond and options.
Yeah.
And on that sheet, Marion, there's two tabs. The first tab is,
Fully agree. I'm with that.
the first tab is option, the second tab, was the, just examples of bonding. 1 million, 2 million, and 1 million, 1.5 million, and 2 million.
By the time we take this, it would be
What we're
Yeah,
looking,
it just wouldn't affect you until 25.
what we're looking at is option one, right? So the bond, 2
Yes.
million,
To leave something back, Chris, I think that's. but
It's
I'm-
fine. Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
you
You
got totally
know, in
okay.
case something, again, you have a Holly Hill, you have something that.
And
Well, you
then
have, you
Yes.
have obligations, each
And-
of the stakeholders is entitled to 10% of whatever.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
that's
But this
off
year
the
it's already done.
340, and so the 348, that would then 10% of that
Yeah.
is coming
So-
into
so-
the
so-
three
so here's-
buckets
so here's
and the
a-
remaining.
And let me walk, so that's the projection. So I didn't put the FYs, but it said it'd be FY 25 the first year, right?
Yep.
That's your projected revenue. That would be the cost of the bond. That would be how much you have left at the end. I didn't break it into the pots, but that's what it
Yeah.
would be.
No, no,
right?
that's
Okay,
fine.
and but then from there we broke it out. Got it.
Correct. And then so the amount of money goes up. Now, again, that's the maximum amount, because your motion, if there's grants and other revenues,
And
it would
gets
reduce
taken
it.
off.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
taken. And if we get a better rate than 5%, which is really open, but I can't promise that, then we'd have a,
well, if you're not
interest
going
rates
on
would
the
cost
June,
less.
it's a crapshoot, you know, it
Yeah.
could be less, it could be more, so.
Right.
We'll see. Mary Ann, you were gonna say something?
Hi. No, I wasn't, but I just want to make sure I'm on a bonding schedules document. Is that the correct one?
Yes, it is, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
But we're looking at the 2
No,
million, the one on the far
yeah.
right, Marianne, the one for $2 million.
Option one, though.
Yeah, well, the other
Option
tab,
one.
Marianne, if you flip to the other tab. There's two tabs on that, the other tab has the options on it, so. It's called, funding options, I think the tab says, what is it?
You got, funding options,
Funding
town
options,
recreation.
recreational
And
growth.
Marianne, we're looking at option one, seems to be the consensus.
You know, this would be a good time to really encourage people to go out for other kinds of funding too. A little more incentive to do that.
Darren?
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
Just helping refer to the document, we're trying, someone was asking what the tab was, so. Just
Okay.
think,
Any other comments by committee members?
So let's go over this for the public and maybe for me. So if we're looking at the schedule for $1 million over 10 years, let's break it down for me.
2 million.
2
2
million.
million, Marianne.
Okay, let's talk about that. Scheduled for 2 million over 10 years. Let's break it
Okay.
down for me and how much will be still in our pot for CPC
Okay.
to do generous
Good.
donations.
So if we use the, so Marion, if we use
You might want to
the
spin her.
level principal payment, I can't, I'm sorry, there you are.
Sorry, I know this is-
You've been seeing me, but I can't see you, so, you'll generate 648,000 in revenue. The cost of the first year is 300,000, so the net would be 348. Plus the money you already have on hand, which is about $800,000. So you have about $800,000 in the bank, even today.
So I wouldn't touch that.
So you'd have that going to next year,
Yeah.
and you'd add 3, so you have a little bit more than $1 million, about $1.1 million or so going into next year. And then it would accelerate. You see the bond costs start to drop right away, go down to about $10,000 a year, actually, as it turns out. And then so your revenue your revenue continues to go up. So in 5 years, over 5 years, you generate $2 million net after the payment of the bond. And over 10 years, it's 4.7 million. And this is a conservative number. It's likely it'll be higher. You'll have more revenue. We're just being very conservative on the numbers. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes,
Have
it
you-
does. It does.
Okay. And again, you have 800. I didn't add it up for myself again, but if you add up all your current little buckets, you have about $800,000 in change right now.
And the projected revenue wouldn't change the cost. Our cost would be
Oh,
the
yeah,
same.
yep, it costs a bit of, the only thing that's gonna change on, well, the cost gonna be less, I hope, right?
Right, but only no change would be the.
The revenue would hopefully go up, yeah. But this is. I'm pretty confident that these revenue numbers are stone cold conservative, so.
That's good. Better be safe.
Mike Dickey.
It's Mike Dick, 27 Parker Ave. Question on the debt service, just to be clear.
Yeah.
The payments that you're making, including the principal and the debt, is all coming out of CPC?
Correct,
Okay, so there's no demand on the rest of the town's capital
budget
Correct.
for debt service. Okay, thank you.
This is one of the eligible uses of CPC money is recreation open space.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions, concerns?
I'm seeing myself now. I see myself in the corner.
Yeah, there you
I don't know if I got a second. What did Ginny?
You did, Ginny said.
Ginny
yeah.
did. Yep.
go. All right. Do we want to move to a vote? All right, let's begin. Ginny,
Jenny Nodgeny, aye.
Jen,
And are we, just to be clear, are we voting, we're voting for the package with the $2 million bond?
yes.
So it's both?
The option one.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Paul Grady, aye.
Mary Ann? Mary Ann
She's thinking.
And whether I'll,
and Darren,
Garrett says aye.
Tom Reardon, aye. All right,
Thank you.
Excellent.
very good.
You might see me more regularly now, so.
Great.
Thank you for
Because,
your
Thank you.
attention.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
our finance director is taking a job on the Cape. She's returning to the Cape.
All
So
right,
Jennifer Mills heading back to the Cape. So I'm,
you're gonna be the financial.
I'll be the financial, I'm the chief financial officer anyway, technically, so. you'll see me every day.
As long as it's CEO.
You know, anybody who's a government accountant who's bored with their job, wants to do something else, let me know, so.
We have a great guy
Do,
at housing.
I'm so sorry. Do we have any other business? I've got to.
No,
get
go,
there.
you
I've
go.
gotta get to road and
Go,
sidewalks.
go,
I
go,
just
sidewalks.
don't wanna,
We were gonna have a discussion about process, but I,
is that okay if I?
sure.
Can I give you
myself?
something?
Of course you
And we'll
can.
talk about. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry. It's a
No.
bounce from meeting to meeting. You notice.
I will be there later.
Yes, oh, I know, actually.
I thought
It would have been
you were-
easier to know we're meeting up at the high school.
We tried.
I know, we
Couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I was gonna talk
couldn't
about
get you.
this mainly
Just
tonight.
kind of-
and
Yeah.
how we-
I know, I was
how we
excited, I was all
establish
excited to
criteria.
see what it was like, 'cause my
Where's
wife
an
has been up
example
there
from
for the last 3 years.
This is a-
Where,
this is a-
where they,
What's the
yeah,
most
where
the community room.
The community room, right?
It's not a very nice room.
we have all of our businesses there.
I think you're doing it. man.
No, it's just a simple fact, like, I just wanted to know where she disappeared.
Well, they were the learning conference.
Yeah, I know you got pictures.
They were the learning conference.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they had a much nicer space. They went
Together.
upstairs.
with
Yeah,
other
okay.
This one
commissions
is
and
like
all of
the basement.
It's like a, is it like a dungeon-esque room?
No, it's probably a light.
Areas
It
and
just-
It has
area.
a
We need to
door with a
establish
window on it.
Yeah,
criteria.
this one, this upper level. windows.
That all used to be the, locker rooms.
Can have a
That's
better
what I
chance
heard.
of-
It's right next to
Have
the
a project
supermarket.
across the-
We used to go down that way to the locker rooms, we'd hang a left to go to Clark
Yeah.
Chatterton's AD
I
office.
don't have it.
That was down there.
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
always reading the newspaper, would always like slide money into the Coke machine, when,
Oh, I
like when they
thought
banned
that
soda,
I
when they
had-
first did the
if I
soda
signed
bans.
up for the-
We'd all go down and like start drinking, we'd get sodas.
I mean, I kid you not. So. you know,
Clandestine
you know
soda.
this, man.
And then they opened up like a store, kind
it's
of closer to where the
necessary.
cap was,
It's necessary.
the old cap.
But you know,
And,
That's the library.
I mean,
So,
but
Swap.
I
This is
got a
actually a
list
nice
today
room.
of all of the commissions.
Yeah,
this
is great.
Well, you know, I was thinking, I was at the middle school, so, we were at the open house that we were talking about, and,
I would like to.
look, my son's concerts don't have windows.
Compose a letter
They much
and send
nicer.
a copy of this. So that
You know,
everyone
his
can
science
do all
lab.
of
Oh, the
it.
science lab.
Ask them to
The
get
science
it.
lab. There was-
I don't remember,
There was a
because
concert one.
that
It was
route-
with-
Would like to pitch in.
That's
like
actually
the
better.
math. I think the math
If
I
you wanna
help.
look at
I was gonna look at it. If you need any help, by all means.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
we have. You have. my
There,
number.
I just, I didn't notice it until he.
I think yes, I think you do.
No, oh,
I'll give it anyways.
No.
Maybe you can have my number too. 617
So excited.
817
So.
My daughter
3282. I
Yeah.
think I have
Great,
you,
great
but someone sent me a text and I'll lock you both and I know you're.
I know, I
love-
I had-
3282.
Just-
I wouldn't say I loved it.
3282.
And well, that's because you didn't have those teachers who were just so happy.
No, I had everybody hanging
I,
on.
I'll see you up there.
The other one.
See ya.
Okay, thank
Had a
you.
great
Thank you.
Mr. March.
Thank
Okay.
you. The other day.
I had a great science teacher.
I'll tell him
Had to
he's
go
got a lot.
Tell him that I haven't seen him all day.
All right, should we get back to order here?
Absolutely.
Let me turn the floor over to Ginny, but first let me say that Ginny's done just a spectacular job in trying to suggest ways that we can bring our processes and application structures into kind of best practice kind of standards. I think it's long overdue and it's taken a ton of work, but I think we have a very good platform from which to kind of look forward. So Ginny, take it away.
I've been working on guides, timetables and forms. And one of the things I'd like to just stress tonight is I think we begin with collaborating on a set of criteria and priorities. And it should go to the commissions, the 4 commissions and any organizations that Historical Society under you, whoever you can reach out to have them contribute to us establishing these criteria. Some are very general, they come right from the CPA. Others are more like townwide. That, for example, and this is all an example from another town, it's not ours, but it gives you a sense of the specificity. Produce an advantageous cost benefit value, serve more than one CPA purpose, that sort of thing. And then you get down to the 4 actual stakeholders and some more specific project type recommendations too, which could be upgraded and changed, and updated periodically. But I think that would be step 1 for us. Also, we will need to, I don't know, maybe everybody already has these, I don't know.
Be good to have you.
But
I am,
we need to get together, and Jennifer, you're better at this than I am. I'm the
Oh,
complete
thank you.
technical dummy, as Chris will tell you. He had to tell me one time what button to press so that I could be heard. But we need to kind of make a diagram and a plan for formatting this online on our website. But if you would take the time to just read the general material and then think about this, and everybody get together with their constituents. I will certainly ask housing and the housing authority, the housing trust, for their recommendations when it comes to community housing. Anybody can pitch in ideas, but we are, just to make this our own. Okay.
We can also create a online application for you too. So.
Yeah, well, I
Electronic.
formatted them all, but that's what we need to do. We're gonna have to put them online for, yeah. Mhm. So. And it will demand more people, there's no question, but it's good practice. I mean, when you're dealing with public money, you just simply have to be a little.
I think it just keeps everybody accountable for,
Yeah.
keeps us accountable for the information, and it keeps
Yeah.
people accountable for what they're looking for.
Exactly, yeah, if you do a good grant application, you're halfway through your implementation.
Exactly.
But the other thing is, we want to create a permanent record of our activities, and we just don't have that now.
I mean,
So,
especially it's easier to retain these records when they're electronic.
Sure,
It takes up a lot
Yeah.
less filing cabinet
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
than
but for
anything
example,
else.
they said, sometimes we'll just call the town, I don't know what we do. We say, okay, we're recommending this amount for so-and-so and this amount for so-and-so. No. Have a form,
Mhm.
with all of those consistent details on it, so that it's a record for everybody. One of the things we'd have to set up is what is private information, what is, public, that sort of thing. So I don't know anything about that, but. So that's all I really wanted to say tonight. If people would read the materials, and we can hopefully get things online in time for the next round, for say the fall town meeting.
And I don't know if this is on here, Ginny, but one of the things you suggested in the longer document that I had seen,
Mhm.
which I thought was really great, was like a deadline, so that we
Oh, yeah.
can
Oh, yeah.
review everything at once, so
Yeah.
we know.
Twice a year.
So it isn't
Yeah. Even
little
though,
things that
yeah.
you kind of know all at once, how much money is going out.
you
Yeah,
can get your
That's great.
application ready whenever you want, but we will be reviewing them
on it.
on a regular basis and
Mhm.
getting back to you and asking you for documentation and so forth. And
And
then
even-
it'll all go to the town at a regular.
And even giving somebody the option, I used to, when in my old life, I used to read grants for for
I used to write
the
them.
workforce training funds. So
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
companies that would, come
Yeah.
to the state looking for money. And it's just almost exactly kind of this, but they were asking for millions of
pretty.
dollars, more
Yeah.
millions of dollars than like what we're doing. And the more information you have, the better off. And people would always like attach information. I think, and again, going to. That I know we're kind of still talking about, but giving somebody the ability to attach documents. To like a file, like a grant, like proposal goes a long way. Because then, as you just said, like when you create it, you're more than halfway, almost more than halfway there.
Well, you're thinking through. One of the things Tracy and I talked about though was the fact that most people don't have any training in how to write a grant,
Mm.
you know, and is there some way, you know, we can find some, I mean, I could certainly help people and it doesn't conflict with my obligations to housing. But I'm happy, you know,
We could do a nice little video, by the way, explaining how this all works.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
And then put it on the website, get them watch.
sure. Well, let's think about that.
As sort of a collateral initiative, Mary Ann is thinking about a handbook and how that might go. And
Yes.
Mary Ann, you want to talk about that a little?
Yes, thank you. I was excited when Ginny proposed doing these grant documents, that they're very necessary. We need to be more accountable and track our have more permanent record, as she said. One thing I've been wanting to do, and I've been searching for my own to be a better citizen, volunteer as part of this group, is to have my own CPC manual, and I've often referenced many other towns. I did suggest us developing one a few years ago, but it didn't go any forward. So here, I feel like there's a group that's supportive of creating a new CPC, or creating the first CPC process manual. And I'm referencing a lot of other towns. The town of Harvard has a great one, the town of Hingham, Lexington as well. But what it would do was tell what is the role of the CPC? What do we specifically do? And it would break it down into the 4 quadrants of what we do. And tagging on to Ginny's project, it would just explain past projects that we have funded, give us examples, reminders of timelines, what is the comment period, explain what is a bonding that we could have used for today, the role of the chair. There's so much information that we need day to day, and it's a good, I reference like 3 manuals. So I think it would be helpful to all of us. And going forward, as we onboard new members onto this committee, it's a great reference piece. So it's taking some time, but I once it's in some state, I will pass it on for all of you to look at it, add to it. And I think it will be a great manual for the future, and it will support us much better.
I think that'd be terrific. I'd like to have proposed for people's consideration, maybe we create a little subcommittee that might be made up of Ginny and Mary Ann and anybody else who would be interested in thinking more systematically about these things, how they relate to one another, and come up with some recommendations for the committee. Anybody want to
Sure.
add to the fun?
Yeah. I was,
Great.
one other area that we really need to do a little work in. Drawing from the document that Mary Ann is working on is something that we can use to publicize ourselves. We're not doing that, you know, get the word out to all the organizations or anyone interested. This is what we do. If you're interested, come talk to us or whatever. With examples of, you know, past projects and so forth. And just get, you know, do a little more publicizing.
Do we need a vote for something like that, Tracy, or can we just establish it? A subcommittee. made up
Subcommittee,
of-
they can just.
Yeah, you can make it formal if you like.
Or it could be like a working group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to make it formal, but do we need to? I mean, if the 3 of you are happy. Trying to coordinate and think about it. Why don't we
The
just-
vote has to be taken.
Yeah.
Only the full body can make votes on stuff. So yes,
Yeah.
I may have groups to go off on the side.
That's why.
We're always told the 3 people together, we were standing together in the 9/11 and Kathy Nothnagel says, we can't all stand together, that will constitute a meeting.
Well, here it is 9 of you.
Nine, there's
3
9
and
of us,
5.
you need 5.
4 of you can even get together. So.
One other thing that in my research of creating this manual, I came across our bylaw for this committee. And it's out of date. It references the old bylaw when we were first created in 2001, and then it references another bylaw that was created also in 2001, or it was updated. It's very confusing, actually. But it talks about different committees that don't even exist in the town anymore. So I think we need to update that of who sits on our membership. And it also doesn't mention select people, so I think it's worth discussing, are they citizens of the town? So
The select board said, the select board is the Parks Commissioners, Mary Ann, that's how they
Uh-huh.
said.
The Board of Parks.
Yeah, the
Commissioners.
select board is the Board of Parks Commissioners in Cohasset.
And
So that's why you have
recreation.
that's why you have a select member representative, it's because they are the Board of Parks Commissioners. So
But we have a
Okay.
recreation commission that has a lot.
you do, but they don't, Recreation Commission doesn't have a seat on this.
Well, that's like you combined.
Yeah, I didn't do the bylaw either, that was a long time ago.
I mean, but I never have understood that. Why, according to CPA, open space and recreation are two quite different
Correct,
things.
they
And-
are.
But here they're combined and I.
No, there's an open space and recreation commission and there's a rec commission. Big
No,
difference.
but I mean, on this board, when we consider things on this board, it seems to be one person represents both, and I've never quite understood that. And-
Well, why isn't the subcommittee on
Look into it.
process, yeah, look into that and.
look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And come up with some
I think some of
recommendations.
it's kind of state law too. I don't think a town, I think.
Most
Look
towns
for
have them
seats.
separate.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
It's
Ginny, why
exciting.
don't I ask
Thank
you to
you.
chair that, so that there's
Okay.
somebody
We'll
responsible for
communicate.
convening and whatnot, and so.
We mostly do it over the internet.
If you have any
That's fine.
legal questions, that's my office, we'll see if we can get
Sure.
some help for you.
Great.
Council, okay?
Thank you. for your
All
time.
right.
Yeah.
Any other business to come before us?
Well, no.
Any old
I'm
business,
happy
any
that
new
we
business?
were able to approve those.
You have to.
Oh, the minutes we have, right?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
minute.
Here's my agenda.
They do an annual meeting
forgot
too,
the
if they set
agenda.
that, yeah.
Yes.
All right, does anybody, pardon me?
I'm trying, he was asking about the annual meeting. I talked to you about that before, right? It's certain time. of
Yeah, you
year.
did.
I have to look back at my notes.
You need to set
It's like,
it's an annual public meeting and people can come and
Yeah.
learn and.
We have.
Does it?
no, it was done in January
Is it
last
slotted
year.
into a timeframe that we have?
I'll look
Yeah,
at the
kind of.
time
I mean,
tomorrow.
one of
Last
the
year
times that
was
might do it,
January.
if we had a product from the process committee,
That'd be great.
that
Yeah.
we could begin to,
I think you have to do it, in the fall, I don't even know, is there a time frame on that?
So I was just saying, last year they did it in January,
Why
but
don't we,
prior than that, it.
was always in the fall.
Yeah,
why don't we look at the schedule we're
Yeah.
gonna set up for reviewing grants and,
Yeah.
you know, and then pick a time when we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that busy.
After town meeting.
but I think it would be more than pro forma if we had some substance to share
Yeah.
with people and
That's
get
right.
reactions to,
Right.
it, so.
That's true.
Okay,
I had a quick question though before just, so I had found on the CPA, on that coalition
Yeah.
website, they've got, because what I couldn't find on our website was the projects that,
Mhm.
that we funded.
Mhm.
And they have a whole list on there. Who gives it to them?
So
I
we
saw
just,
this-
Chris and I just did
You
the
did-
annual
you
report.
guys did,
Yep.
okay.
So we should, I'm happy
Cause I
to create a page to have.
We
all
can
the
put
stuff.
that on the town website. We should, probably
Yeah.
should, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause I was,
Part of our permanent record.
yeah, or somehow,
Put it in the social
populated
media.
using what you've
Can you
given them or
put it
something,
in-
I mean.
Oh, we have all of,
Yeah, cause I downloaded it and I was still.
we have to file with the state, it's a very regulated process.
Well, that's
State
what I
has to
figured.
update
I
this.
just didn't know who
general.
did it.
So yeah, we could create a webpage.
I was
Just put a link to the database.
Yeah, we
to-
did, I did that in the report that we just did.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I found it. The back.
I mean, I just couldn't get on it. I got on to CPA and stuff, but I could never get to our town's list of projects. so.
Yeah, it's all up.
Filtered in.
I think if we created a database that was sourced and it fed into what projects we've done, that would be great, because otherwise you have to sort it right now through that database. But if you already pre-sorted it, perhaps, or
We can put pictures in too, I mean, I know there's been pictures and video, like, remember when the John Smith thing was redone, some
Yeah.
years back, right, and then John Smith came, so just to shoot, I don't, you'll probably never know what People don't even know what that is.
Some of it, yeah.
That's, isn't that sad? Kids just don't know any history in this town.
I remember, we did it about 2014, yeah, and it was the first time I was here, so.
Yeah.
And what's this, I can't remember his name, from the Legion, who comes to see you all the time, comes in to talk to, Michelle, yeah, I can't remember his name. He was John Smith.
Oh, yeah.
The chair would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
I
Or,
wasn't making a motion, I was looking. for it.
oh, I will make a motion then to accept
you.
the minutes.
I second.
Great. All in favor?
I,
I guess we have to go around, really.
oh, that's the minutes, yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Mark St. Ange, aye.
Darren,
Darren, I.
Mary Ann,
Mary Ann Weatherald, I.
Tom Reardon, aye. All right. And the chair would accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jenny, I.
Jennifer, I.
Mark, aye.
Darren,
I.
Mary Ann,
I.
Tom Reardon, aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.